Here we go. Bearded Banker podcast, episode 2. Thank you for joining me. What a week it's been. Um, First of all, I couldn't wait for this week to come. It was a long week after having the podcast episode 1 drop and then having all this um, information and content. Kind of, I guess, when you're in that zone of preparing for the next week, for the next podcast, again, everything seems like content and you just can't wait to get to the next one, which is kind of unexpected. I wasn't expecting that. So super happy to be doing this again, episode 2. Some notes here. So first of all, thank you all for the support. It has been really overwhelming. I know that's cliche, but just the amount of support I got, people reaching out and saying that they enjoyed it or giving me some feedback and things to work on or critiques. I welcome it all. So thank you. Also, the amount of people that reached out and asked to be a guest on the podcast is awesome, because I do have a plan to have guests on the podcast, but the people that reached out and wanted to join was kind of surprising. Not necessarily people I would have thought were interested, but they were. So that's awesome. Specifically on the back of a boat in Miami. That was an invitation, which hopefully we can make that happen one of these days. But yeah, that just, really, really, again, overwhelming support. So thank you so much. I hope that we continue to grow and get better and make this, a great experience for everybody. So a couple things I want to go through. We'll see how long this pod lasts. And go through everything, especially the threads. Like I said, being in this podcast, in this podcast mode and this podcast mindset, I feel like I was more active on the ideas and the content than usual, or that I planned for. If you follow me on Threads, you'll see all the ideas. We're going to go through some of them today. So just a lot more active because everything seems like it's something we should discuss. So that's something I wasn't really planning for. Something cool happened earlier in the week, and it was in regards to financial planning, financial advising, financial coaching. So I had a friend of mine DM me and ask if I could assist with financial planning. Now, a lot of times when I get that request, people don't necessarily mean a financial planner or financial advisor, right? Because oftentimes financial advisors, financial planners, they're helping people with investments or setting up life insurance or how much money they should have in savings versus how much they should be investing, what to do with their 401k, things like that. And what they really want is a financial coach or someone to help them get out of debt or just get a handle on their finances. So when I get that request, I said, hey, just put us in touch. If I can't help them, then I probably know the person that can, and I will make sure we take care of them. And so they reached out, and what they really needed was a financial coach, someone just to help them get out from treading water. And I'm able to do that. I've done some personal finance coaching sort of things over the years, just helping people get a handle on their finances, either with Excel spreadsheets that I put together for them or going over income and debts and expenses and just making sure they're in good shape. And then this one popped up, and it kind of opened my eyes to a new way of doing business where I can help people literally from the beginning of not having a handle on their finances, get a handle on their finances, get out of debt to the extent that we can, and get them a property and get them a home that they own. And I was thinking about that maybe as a type of curriculum where the graduation is purchasing a home. And obviously I can do the loan on that and help on the real estate end. And that could be the overall goal and how I would ultimately get compensated, but kind of, putting together this plan for people that are in a position where they feel like they can't get ahead or they can't manage their money to the point where they can get out of the hole they're in or just the stress, right? So this person, we scheduled a call. reached out. She had been through a lot in the last couple of years, and just in her personal life, which caused her to run up some things on credit cards and debts, and falling into a lot of the holes that a lot of us fall into, with trying to use personal loans and things like that to consolidate credit cards, and then doing that once or twice because you end up running up the credit cards. I made a video on this a while back. You can check on my Instagram page if you scroll down far enough, about debt consolidation loans. And the problem with the debt consolidation loans is that those people that are selling that stuff are just looking to close another deal, and they're not really coaching you as to how to make sure you don't fall into this hole again, right? Because they'll just sell you another one. And I think the thing is, that's important about those debt consolidation loans is that, yeah, you're taking this money and you're paying off all this debt, but then you're leaving all those credit cards to be used again, and that's usually what happens. Dealing with money is 90% behavior. It's not necessarily how much money you have coming in. Does making more money help? Yeah, for sure. But I'll tell you this, doing what I do for a living, I've seen plenty of people, lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs that make a lot of money and have, exorbitant student loans and just debts and expenses in their business, and they don't keep as much of it as you would think, or they don't really have a handle on it, because they're just not good with money. So it's not really about how much money you make. It's about, doing the right thing with it, and planning for it and budgeting and things like that. So going back to these personal loans and debt consolidation loans, they're tough for me to suggest, because I know that once that happens, it's kind of like a quick fix, right? It's like ripping the Band-Aid off, or just a quick fix to try to get out of the hole you believe you're in, which is all the monthly payments. And you say, okay, if I consolidate everything, I could save some money monthly and then just pay that one loan. And in theory, that would be great if that's what you actually did. The problem is that people do that, and then they feel like they have all this extra credit available, and then something, comes up in their personal life, or their old habits kind of peek through, and they start running up those credit cards again. And that's what happened to this person, and it happened twice. So, ran up the credit cards, got a personal loan, ran them up again, got another personal loan. So obviously it's a behavior thing. So how do we handle that in that case? Well, first of all, I want to know what you went through, and we got that out of the way, and it was some pretty tough stuff. So it definitely makes sense for her to have been in that situation. I get it for sure. With people in her life being sick, passing away, and messing up the finances, or just not having the capacity or the energy to focus on her finances the way she should, and kind of just saying, well, I'll figure it out when I get out of this, this dark cloud, kind of moves. So I get it. We went through some tough financial times when my father got sick and passed, and that was a 9-month process, but he had all his ducks in a row for the most part. He literally handed me a USB while we were in the hospital and said, everything's on here, passwords, bank accounts, everything you need to make sure your mother and your brother are okay. And I'm glad he did, and I'm glad he had it set up, because it did make it easier to figure out moving forward. So I get it for sure. And again, a lot of this stuff is behavior. So now step one is, well, you reached out to somebody who reached out to me, and you have something you need to fix. So that's step one, right? Good for you. You've been through hell and back, and now you're like, okay, I'm going to get it fixed. So that's step one. And a lot of times that's hard for anybody, right? For most people. Step two is, do you have a budget? Like, do you know where your money's going? She didn't. She said, no, I have an idea. And I don't care what system you use, if it's Excel, if you have an app, if you use different envelopes, different jars, if you keep money for your food in your fridge and you keep money for your other bills under the mattress. I don't care, as long as it's a system that works for you and you can track the money and how much you need to make sure you're budgeting and your money's going where it needs to go. And this is all, Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman things. And really all I do, and this is what I told this person, all I do is hold you accountable from this point, right? So we're going to make a plan. I'm going to tell you what I think you need to do to get out of this hole. See, what's really doable. And then we'll just check in every month or so and make sure you're sticking to the plan. And that's all I do is hold you accountable. And, and that went over really well. So what we did was, within 24 hours, she said, no, I'm definitely gonna get this budget done. That was step one. Step two was like, okay, how much debt do you have? We went over that. Step three was, and she had a good handle on her numbers. She knew them pretty well. Just didn't have something down on black and white to really attack. So she put that together. I said, okay, when can you get me that? Maybe by the end of the week. She said, nope, I'm going to get it to you tonight within 24 hours. She was definitely motivated to figure this out. And after speaking with her and going over, her income, her debts, how much was there, I said, listen, I know it sounds like a lot. And she mentioned even maybe filing for bankruptcy. The problem with that is when you file for bankruptcy or you just get another debt consolidation loan or whatever the case is, you're looking for a quick fix. And when you do that, you don't go through the pain of fixing things. And if you don't go through the pain of fixing it, you never change your behavior because you just feel like I'll get another quick fix, right? I'll just, patch this hole up and then, we'll keep sailing. The problem is you got to rebuild the boat, and no one really wants to do that because it's the harder way to do it. But I promise you, once you do it, you'll never be in this situation again. And that resonated with her, and we were able to set up a plan to make that happen. So on the initial call, it was like, hey, I think within a year, maybe 2 years or so, you can get out of this. She had the budget to me that night. I put together a quick, simple spreadsheet for her the next day with some calculations, and basically with everything that she has going on, with the money she's making, she can get out of this probably within a couple of years, and then get out of her parents' home that she's in now, which definitely was part of the plan. Stay there, because you don't have to pay too much to stay there. You're just helping out with some bills and groceries and things. And as people start going through this process, they start looking for other things where they can cut here and there, maybe things they can do on the side to increase their income. And majority of the time, it's just venting, getting it out, talking to somebody, and then getting a plan. And so thank you for the opportunity to that person. I believe she was very excited with the light at the end of the tunnel that we were able to give her, and see that, just the relief of the weight that's been lifted just by knowing what the plan is. So, putting a plan together in any aspect is definitely the way to go to get you, out of the stress that you're in. So that was huge. I wasn't expecting that. I've gotten some requests over the years to do things like that, but I think I'm definitely going to do more of it and maybe put that, as early on in my process with the ultimate goal of getting a property. And, that'll be like the graduation, right? We got your house, and then we take it from there and work on other things, other investments that need to happen for you to be successful and, financial freedom and become an owner, right? Unlocking ownership. That's what we're doing, unlocking ownership. So let's go through some threads. Again, this is what I use as kind of bullet points for the podcast and what I want to discuss. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of threads this week, and this will be kind of how we determine how long this is going to be as far as the podcast goes, right? Some of them are going to be longer than others, depending on how much I tweet or thread or whatever we're going to call it throughout the week, and how much content I'm consuming that I think could be valuable for you guys moving forward. So we're going to start from the end and work backwards until I get to where I was last week. I also have another new segment I'm going to probably implement, and then one more thing I want to go through before we wrap up in regards to a post I put up on Instagram about a deal that closed recently with some down payment assistance, which I think could be pretty cool. So, let's see. So the first one we have here: most of us can't put whys into words. Good leaders can. All leadership is the communication of your conviction. It's hard because the parts of the brain that feel conviction about beliefs are different from the parts of the brain that control language. We follow people who can communicate their convictions. That's from an idea from Simon Sinek. I was watching, again, while I was on the treadmill working out one of these mornings, watching an old podcast from him. I think it's old. I don't know. I don't think it's recent. And that's, it was about leadership. And I think figuring out why we do what we do And for me, the why is getting more people into more homes to, kind of share these secrets of how people become wealthy and become owners, right? Unlocking ownership. Apple has Think Different. Ours is going to be, or is, unlocking ownership. Because there is kind of like a if you know kind of thing, and we're just sharing the information, which goes to another thread I posted about, which we'll get to in a second. But as far as leadership goes, yeah, it's having the conviction in your beliefs and being able to communicate that. And what Simon was saying in this presentation was, it's very hard to put whys into words, right? If you ask someone why they're with their boyfriend or girlfriend, or why they married their spouse, they'll say, I don't know, I love them, I've been with them forever. Those aren't really good reasons. But when you can articulate why, you can become a leader, especially with conviction, because people will follow that, because it's such a hard thing to do. And when you put it into words with conviction, you can really motivate and inspire people, which is ultimately the goal for any, team, and something I'm looking to implement with my team, and make sure that I do on these podcasts as well. Next one is in regards to the mortgage and real estate market. So I'm going to bounce around a lot. That's just how we're going to do it. All these things are going to fall into mortgage, money, and mindset. But this one was about the rates and what's going on. So jobless claims or unemployment, same thing. For this week, we're expected to rise 10K to 211,000 versus 201,000 last week. So they were at 201 last week. They were expected to go to 211. They actually came in at 204. So, which means unemployment claims were lower than expected, which means that the job market or labor market is pretty strong. Or it could mean people that are working are taking on additional jobs to make ends meet, or both. It's a strong labor market and people taking on additional jobs. This is the opposite of what the Fed is looking to do, right? Because they're raising rates to combat inflation, to slow the economy down, or to cool it off. And if people are keeping jobs or getting jobs, that's really the opposite of what they want to do. To some extent, they want to raise unemployment, because that will slow down spending and decrease inflation. So this is how this news affects the mortgage and interest rate market. By seeing this report, we know that, okay, things aren't cooling off as fast as the Fed would like. So what they're likely going to do is keep rates higher for longer, instead of starting to cut. So we're in a pause right now as far as raising goes, but seeing something like that could mean that they're going to look to raise again before the end of the year, which is very likely, or at least pause for a little bit longer until they start to see these numbers come down. Okay, next one. Your why is fully formed by the time you're 16. It's always positive. It's always striving for something. Though it may have been born out of trauma, there's usually a silver lining that gives us that cause. Again, this is Simon Sinek. I think this is a different presentation, going back to the first point about putting whys into words. If you're looking for your purpose or you're looking for your why, it was formed by the time you were 16 in most cases. So go back to that time, think about why you started doing what you were doing, and that's probably where your why lies. Now, in the beginning, your why is probably very selfish, because you have to put your mask on, your oxygen mask on first before you can help others. You have to make money first before you can start giving back. You have to get yourself out of the hole or situation you're in before you can start really considering others in most cases. At least that's how we feel, especially when we're younger. For me at 16, my why was, just to be successful, just to be the man, just to be the guy in my family that people would come to. Mostly ego driven, right? To be in the clubs and popping bottles and have girls, and that's what the culture was that I was brought up in, and music and culture and movies, and seeing guys with power like that. That's what I wanted. Being successful. My dad was kind of like that for the family. Like, he was the oldest. He was relatively successful. People came to him a lot with their issues. And that probably had an impact on me, but wanting more too. So that was what it started as. And it's funny because I remember a time doing mortgages and getting into this business and then growing up. Um, a lot of times the adults in your life that you think have everything together don't really. And when you become an adult too, you start doing things that they can learn from or that they don't necessarily know, they start to come to you and ask you questions. I remember that happening with some people in my family, older people, aunts, uncles, cousins, people older than me, and asking me questions and coming to me for advice or help or guidance and feeling like, wow, like, I'm working towards becoming that person. And I think your why changes over the years too, right? Obviously, when I was really young, I loved, animals, and probably asked me I wanted to be a veterinarian, and then I wanted to play for the Yankees. I was, playing baseball. I was pretty good at it. Um, and that was my thing. And then, that all went away. We got into, chasing girls and going out. And then it was just about, making money and money, power, respect, right? And trying to become that guy. And that was really my motivation and still is to an extent. I just want to be the best version of myself. I want to be someone with influence. I want to be someone with power. I'm not going to deny that. And in order to get there, I have to do things that make me better. I have to be uncomfortable, get out of my comfort zone, and just keep working at it. But I think your why changes over the years, because once you get to a point where you can start taking care of people and helping your mom out, helping your brother out, helping, making sure your wife's family is okay. When, to the extent you can, or when there's issues or something they need your help with, or, they kind of come to you for things. So that's all happening. And once you get to that point or a point financially, you can start to give back and change people's lives with things. And, that's really what I try to do. Any of my people that have been with me or been out with me, a lot of the times, I'll take care of the bill, or I'll take care of things as far as getting us in a certain situation, or a certain table at a place, or a lounge, or a club. And that's just, I just like to take that on and make sure everyone's good, and then we'll figure it out, afterwards. We're not gonna be here, counting money and trying to make sure that we cover the bill. And I'm sure a lot of you are like that. I know a lot of guys that I deal with are like that too. And when they're in that position with the team, they kind of take care of things. And, it's a good feeling, and you want to be able to do it and kind of do it without expecting anything in return. And that's not to say that I am that guy all the time. Depending on what group I'm in, I'm not the number one. I could fall back to number two. That's one of the things I really love about my group of friends. We could play the one when we're in our world and play the two or the three when we're in their world, right? So when I'm moving with my friends in certain situations and I'm with them, I don't have to be that guy. My ego takes a check and it's like, all right, you're number two or number three. Same thing with, my colleagues or the bosses of my company, or, when I'm with them, I know how to play my role too, which is a strength. It's not always, you have to be number one. But when it comes to your thing and your people and you're in that position, then, you can play that role. Success leaves clues. So this is a good one. This was something that popped up on our managers meeting, our senior leadership team meeting this week. And one of the managers mentioned success leaves clues. I've definitely heard that before, but I think it's something that's very important to discuss, because you want to look at what people are doing who are successful and emulate that, right? And I think the thing with me is that I try to be different. I don't want to do what everyone else is doing, which is really the whole idea of Bearded Banker, right? The whole point of it was that I wanted to be comfortable in my own skin and not just conform because I'm in banking or I'm a young professional, that I have to be clean shaven and, wear a suit all the time, and kind of conform. I wanted to be myself, because I feel like when you're yourself, you can be your most confident. When you're most confident, you can be your most successful, and that'll help yourself, the company you're with, your client, your colleagues, everybody, right? So that was kind of the idea of Bearded Banker, was to be different. But also, when you see things that are working, you have to take note, and you have to say, okay, this is what they're doing and it's working. How can I implement this on my end to make sure I'm successful, either in business or my job or whatever I'm doing, or life? You see someone let's say, for example, for me, right, I'm not very romantic. I don't have that gene, and Laura will tell you that. Everything else is really good, but I'm not a romantic. But when I see someone who is either one of my friends or an acquaintance or someone's husband, that's success and it's leaving clues. And I have to say, okay, I'm not good at that. Let me take some notes, right? So, same thing in business. Success leaves clues, and we want to follow those clues and use them to build our thing and do it our way. The way I'm doing this podcast, the way I do a lot of the things I do, I like to put my own twist on it, or at least do it in a way that I'm comfortable with for me, and not do what everyone else is doing just because everyone else is doing it. Because we have to differentiate ourselves too, and we have to, be individuals. We're all different. It shouldn't look the same. It shouldn't all be the same. So success leaves clues. Follow them. Don't copy them. Just implement it into what you do. Let's see next. So this is from Diary of a CEO with Dr. Tara Swartz. One of the things I've learned about the first Americans is that when they would make a big decision for their community, they'd imagine the impact of that decision 7 generations into the future. We don't even think about 1 generation into the future. Now, the reason I tweeted this or threaded this is because I deal with this a lot personally as far as generations and where I come from. I only met my dad's mom and my mom's dad. I never met my dad's dad, and I never met my mom's mom, and I never met the generation before that. Well, I did meet my great-grandmother, my mom's dad's mother, my mom's grandmother. And that's just because of circumstances. People passed away far too early, and I didn't get a chance to meet them. And the ones I did get a chance to meet, I was able to understand a little bit more about where I come from, but I don't really know anything beyond that. And I know some families can relate. I know some families do know, great grandmothers and great grandfathers and even the generation prior. But to think of making a decision, not only for this generation, but 7 generations down the line, that's pretty impressive. That's really taking yourself out of the equation and doing what you need to do in this lifetime for them. And I made a video a while ago. Again, you can scroll down and check it out on my Instagram about passing the baton, right? So we're here in this generation to make sure we do what we have to do for the next generation and pass the baton. And in my opinion, with the people that are in this boat, this middle class boat, trying to get to the upper middle class or, first class, if you will, the upper class, there's 2 things you can really do. And I made a video about this. There's owning property and paying it off and owning it free and clear by the time you go, and leaving that to the next generation to do something with, to rent out, to cash flow, maybe to sell, probably not, but to keep and own land and continue to build on it. And then life insurance. Life insurance is a way that you can pass the next baton. So you leave the next generation with life insurance and a paid off property. Now, when my father passed, he had life insurance and we had a property. It wasn't paid off. And that was one of the things I know he was kicking himself about. I remember him telling me while he was sick, he should have never borrowed from his 401k to purchase one of the properties he purchased. He was like, don't touch your 401k, make sure, he was just on his soapbox a little bit, which I appreciated. He's trying to give me wisdom in those last couple months. And I don't have a 401k. I have other investments just because of the way, the business I have is structured and commission and things like that. But same idea, right? Don't borrow for them if you can avoid it. Save up the money, buy your house, have your investments, and then life insurance. So with that, he was able to put us in a good position. So for most people that are coming to me and they're looking to buy a home, it's like, hey, these are the 2 things. We got to get you a property. We got to get you some life insurance. And it could be term life insurance that just follows the trajectory of the mortgage in case something was to happen. You have money to pay off that property so your family's okay. And those 2 things will set you up so that when it's your time to go, you're leaving property, hopefully multiple properties, which we can help with as well, and life insurance to set up the next generation. And that's really something you could do for the next generation in this one, and kind of pass the baton. Now, obviously, we want to increase and maximize income. If you get to a certain point where your net worth is high enough, you don't necessarily need life insurance. That'd be awesome too. But that's at minimum what we need to do, and something that I stress to my clients a lot of times. Okay, let's see what's next. So 2 hacks for introverts at networking events, or people who generally don't initiate conversation but have no problem holding the conversation once it starts. Now, I consider myself an introvert. It's a spectrum, right? There's introverts 100%, extroverts 100%. I don't think anyone's 100% one thing. It's a spectrum. We have a little bit of everything. So I'm one of those introverts that I prefer to be home. I prefer to be on my own. But I can turn it on when I'm with people. And, for me, I just lose energy by doing that. Some people gain energy by doing that. And I'm not one of those people that costs me a lot of energy, and then I need a day or two to just kind of be on my own and recharge. But here's a way to hack networking events. And I've done enough of them that I know kind of how it works, and I know it can be intimidating in the beginning. So number one is you bring that friend that talks to everybody. You use them as the catalyst to start the conversations that you may not be comfortable starting. The friend that can't help themselves but talk to the stranger in line or in the elevator. That friend will help you break the ice. I have a bunch of those friends that are just those kind of people, right? They can't help but talk to the Uber driver, talk to someone in line, getting lunch, or talk to someone on the elevator, where I can kind of just mind my business and speak if spoken to. Not because I'm not personable, I'm just shy about it, or I don't offer conversation kind of out of the blue. It's just not how I'm wired. But there's people that are, and in networking events, that's crucial. So that's a hack. You can bring them with you, and then when they start the conversations with strangers, you're there to just kind of continue the conversation, because you're open to having conversations and you're there to have conversations. But if you are a little intimidated about doing that, find that friend that kind of is a social butterfly and works the room. You just kind of stick with them, and you could do well and meet the right people that way. That's one hack. Number 2, use your image as a conversation starter. Maybe your haircut, your makeup, your clothes with your brand on it. Maybe you have something to give. Maybe you have something to give to people as you work a room. Things that will make people strike up conversations with you. Then all you have to do is smile and be approachable. So that's a good hack. I've used that before, obviously, with the whole Bearded Banker brand and wearing my own logo and going places and showing it. And it's a conversation starter. People will ask about it. Obviously, walking around with a smile and being approachable helps as well, because then people will be like, oh, I love your haircut, or wow, it's a nice beard, or oh, what's this logo that looks just like you on your sweatshirt or on your tracksuit or on your t-shirt, whatever it is. And that'll also help kind of be a hack. So when you're in line, kind of just doing your thing, getting a drink or grabbing a bite, or with your buddy who's talking everyone's ear off, you can just kind of attract people to you, right? So that's another hack for networking. One more bonus that I didn't put on this thread, but I know I posted a while ago when we were doing our manifest networking events, is networking is more about listening than speaking, right? Most people like to talk about themselves. That's just a fact, right? So you want to get them talking and then ask the right questions, continue the conversation, and listen intently. And listen not with the intent to respond, listen with the intent to understand. You can look into that as well. There's a lot of books on things like that, and how to sell, how to build rapport. Those are going to be great helps for you in networking events. Okay, next. Productivity is happiness, even if not in the moment of producing, absolutely at the completion of production. That's why it feels so good to cross a task off the to-do list. So for me, I love being productive. I think that's why I'm enjoying this podcast so much, and I couldn't wait for this second episode, because I just love producing. I love getting things out. I feel like I get stressed when I consume too much, and I can sit on the couch and watch, binge Netflix or watch movies. I love doing that. But like scrolling and consuming content, it's almost stressful. And I feel like I need to go produce something. I need to put something out. Like I'm consuming all these other people's content and I'm not doing it for myself. I really have to get this get this going. And I feel good after I get something done. Uh, so I think for me, and it might resonate for you, productivity is happiness. As humans, we want to be productive for the tribe, for the village, for the pack, for the community, for the town, for the culture, for the business, for the company. We want to be productive, even if not in the moment of producing. What that means is while you're doing it, you may not like it. It might be hard. It might be stressful. So in the moment, you might not like it. Going to the gym, I hate going to the gym, but I love how I feel after going to the gym, right? How many people have you heard say that? So even if not in the moment of producing, absolutely at the completion of production. So once it's done, you feel great. You come out of the gym, endorphins are high, you feel good, you broke a sweat, you feel pumped. Um, you cross something off your to-do list that you know you need to take care of, you feel great. Uh, you post that reel, you post a number of reels, you post anything, content, podcast, video. It just feels good. So definitely something, just a reminder for me that productivity is my happiness, and to continue producing, because if you're not producing, you're consuming. That's also why you may get anxious doing nothing. You haven't earned the right to quote unquote do nothing by producing something today. Your subconscious knows. So that's just the added bonus, right? Like I said, sometimes by doing nothing, I get anxious, or by scrolling and seeing other people's content and think it's really good, and see their followers or this life they're living. And I know it's all a highlight reel and it's not all it's cracked up to be, but you could feel that. So if you do, my advice to you would be to go produce something in that moment, or go make a plan to produce something that you can then put out so people can consume that from you. And you'll feel much better, especially when you start getting the likes and the love. And it's not about the likes. I get very few likes on my reels, and the views aren't always high, but it only takes one message or one DM or one like, hey, this is your gift, like this isn't a coincidence, and it makes you feel like you're doing the right thing. So thank you for all those comments too. I'll never charge for an online course. This information is too valuable. So I like this because it's kind of witty, it's kind of clever. I'll never charge for an online course. This information is too valuable. Usually anything that's valuable, people want to charge for. And what I'm saying here is that it's so valuable, I'm not going to charge for it. And I know a lot of mortgage people and real estate people have these courses, and you pay, $199 or $999 or whatever it is, and you get this course. I just don't believe in that. I think the information is so valuable that I have to get it out to as many people as possible. And by doing that, I have to do it for free. And my benefit will be when they come, if they choose to use me to help them acquire property with financing, aka a mortgage, and I'll take care of them, and hopefully do that for life, right? 3 to 5 times in their lifetime, most people will have some type of real estate transaction, whether it's renting, buying, refinancing, selling and buying again, downsizing, upgrading. 3 to 5 times in life, they'll have something like that where I can be a trusted advisor in that process. So I'll never charge for an online course. This information is too valuable. I don't like to say never, but I really don't think that's what I would want to do, because the course it's free. You can have it. You can have the information. We need to get it out there so more people are getting into the ownership game. And my job is to unlock ownership for you. And that's why I have to get this information out. It's selfish to not share it. And that's something for you guys too. If you're contemplating creating content or feeling intimidated or insecure, it's selfish to not share all the information and experiences that you have. So do it. Go for it for sure. Okay, where are we at now? More mortgage stuff. So everyone's waiting for rates to come down before jumping into the real estate market. The question you need to ask yourself is if you would rather a $400,000 home at 7 to 8% interest rate that you can refinance and $100,000 in equity in a year or two, or wait a year or two for rates to come down to 5 to 6%, buy a house at $500,000 because demand inflated the prices, and lose out on that potential equity. You can refinance the rate. You can't refinance the price of the home. Just something to consider. So this is a good point, right? And you'll hear a lot of date the rate, marry the house. I don't know that I necessarily believe in that, because a refinance is not guaranteed. And a lot of people are pushing this date the rate, marry the house stuff like, yeah, just refinance in a year or two. But things happen. And sometimes you might not be able to refinance in a year or two. You might not qualify the same, or something happens with your job, or something happens with your credit, right? You never know. So you can't guarantee that. But the idea in theory makes sense in that prices are where they are now because rates are high, meaning the price is a little bit lower. Now, I know for a fact you can't refinance the price of the house. I know that you could potentially refinance the rate. And what happens is if you buy now, we know that when rates come down, more people are going to jump into the market. When more people jump into the market, it creates more demand. When there's more demand, prices will go up, and the same house that's $400,000 now will be 550, something like that. And we saw it in the pandemic. Rates came down, everyone started buying, and prices went up exorbitantly. And not only did they go up, but the demand stayed high. And that's kind of where we're in right now. Prices are remaining stable because there's not enough inventory. So because there's not enough, options for people, and people still want to buy homes, even though it's not as many as before, there's still enough that the prices are staying relatively stable. Now, when those rates drop and those prices go up, you're going to have to jump back into the market when everyone else jumps back into the market and pay a higher price for the same house. Where if you would have bought a year or two earlier and those prices go up, now you just built all that equity, $150,000 in equity that you're losing and putting into just the purchase of this house, instead of buying now when rates are higher and refinancing if possible in a couple of years. So that's the idea there. You're going to see it all over social media. If you're in the real estate industry, if you're looking into real estate, if you're in the process of buying or looking to get pre-approved, you're always going to see, these videos lately, but just a little bit more context, it's not guaranteed that you can necessarily refinance. That's why I don't like to marry the house, date the rate too much, because it's just not guaranteed. But if you can afford it now, and we could definitely double check that for you and help you out, then it is a good time to buy and take advantage of these prices, because again, you cannot refinance the price of the home. And I think that would wrap it up for the threads. Everything else is from last episode. So awesome. So that was going through some of the threads. One scenario I want to go through that I got a lot of messages on and likes on was this post of a closing from this week with a buyer who brought $1,800 to the closing table and owns his home. And it was a down payment assistance program. And, and it was amazing, quick closing. Thank you to the people that liked it. Thank you to the realtor that we worked with. And I don't know if it was a referral from you or we referred it to you, but my real estate partners, we go back and forth. So either way, smooth deal. So let me give some background on that. So the program is called Chenoa Fund. Chenoa is a Native American organization that's providing down payment assistance. And it's an FHA program where you get 3.5% or 5% down payment assistance. And the down payment assistance can either be repayable, where you repay that down payment back over 10 years with a very low payment added to your regular monthly payment, or it's forgivable, where you don't make any payment and the loan is forgiven, kind of like a grant. So how this worked was the borrower's buying the house originally for about $325,000. 3.5% down payment plus closing costs, and getting $5,000 credit from the seller. So I pull out the calculator here. 325 times 3.5% is about 11,375, and then closing costs are another 10 to 12,000. That's kind of standard in most places for a purchase. So you're at 21, maybe 22,000 to close. He was getting the down payment assistance, so that's 11. And then $5,000 from the seller. So we had to bring about $6,000 to the table. So what happened was this appraisal actually came in low. So the reason we were able to get this down payment assistance program accepted is because the property had been on the market for a while. They actually had another deal that fell through, probably because of the appraisal coming in short. And the realtor we were working with was able to negotiate a great deal for the client, saying, hey, look, we know this deal has been on the market for a while. We can buy it. It's a FHA program, down payment assistance, and we need a $5,000 concession, but it's going to close, and we have this guaranteed pre-approval to prove it. And they took the deal. Then the appraisal came in much lower, around 285, and they still took the deal and still provided the concession because, again, the realtor was able to say, do you really want to go back on the market and take your chances again when we know this property hasn't appraised now twice and is worth this amount of money? We can close, the next week. That deal and that pitch that was offered got accepted. So they took the 285, they kept the $5,000 concession, even with the low appraisal, where in most cases the buyer would have to make up the difference in the appraisal. So if the appraisal comes in lower, the buyer usually has to cover the difference in cash, extra down payment, extra closing costs, however you want to look at it, to cover the difference on top of what they were putting down in the closing costs originally. Or you can renegotiate with the seller and you can say, hey, it didn't come in where our original offer was, it came in lower, so we want to buy it at that price. The seller can choose to take it or leave it. In this case, the seller chose to take it because they knew that their property had been on the market for too long as it was, and they wanted to get it off their hands. And they've been through this process. It's a stressful process, or it can be a stressful process, selling or buying property. And they've been through it once or twice with other deals that fell through. So now obviously they wanted to take this one. So our borrower was able to go to the table with only $1,800. They did put additional money for the earnest money deposit. So all in, they might have been at $5,000 or $6,000 to buy a home. And they are ecstatic. And they're going to send us additional referrals, friends and family that know they've been going through this process, and now they see that they closed in a month or so with only a couple $1,000s out of their pocket, so they're super interested, and we're going to take care of them too. And it's a national program, so this is in every state. We can lend in all 50 states, and the program is available in all 50 states. Great program. So just wanted to give some insight on that as far as that goes. Qualifying, it's FHA guidelines. You can go down to 600 credit scores. Debt to income ratios can go up to FHA. Whatever gets approved in the FHA system, we can do with this Chenoa fund. So if you fall into that category, you think it could work for you, we can do a soft credit pre-approval and take care of that for you. So wrapping up here, we got a new segment I'm going to add in. It's called Missed Opportunities. So when I listen back to the previous podcast episodes, I hear things where I'm like, oh, I should have said it this way, right? Or I should have made that joke or that pun. I love wittiness and cleverness, and if there's something I missed, I want to touch on it. So we're going to have this segment, Missed Opportunities. When it applies, maybe I don't miss any opportunities in the previous episode. Most likely I will. So missed opportunities from the prior episode. I said I was talking about having a separate savings account for purchasing a home, and I said you can nickname it with your bank, strictly for the house. I should have said house money. That was the missed opportunity. House money. We're playing with house money, right? Just a cool name to name it. So not strictly for the house. Call it house money, and know that when you're playing with house money, you always win. That's just a good way to frame it. So that's going to be a new segment, Missed Opportunities, and I think it's going to be funny and just something to add on and get people to go back to the prior episode, right? To get more views, and obviously there's strategy to everything we're doing here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to thank everyone for the support on the first episode. Hopefully similar support for this episode. I know I bounce around a lot as far as going through these threads and these topics, but that's kind of how life is, right? It's all mortgage, it's all money, it's all mindset, and we might bounce around a little bit. So in closing, in the words of our buddy 2 Chainz, right? The goal in life is to be mortgage free, control your emotions, have integrity. If you want to use my likeness, I need equity. And if you're really trying to win, you need to bet with me. Till next time, thanks again. We'll talk soon. Take care.